Let's go ahead and turn our attention to the second twin evil within the economy, unemployment. So before the coronavirus hit, the US economy was chugging along, it was doing great with our unemployment rate right around 3.5%. But after the pandemic, when people started to lose their jobs because the economy shut down, we noticed that unemployment spiked upwards to about 15 to 20%. So how exactly do we calculate out these numbers? Will we get back to normal? How fast will we get back to normal? These are all things that we're going to be focusing in on within this particular section. Unemployment, as you can see here, is the number of persons who are not working but are able and willing to work and actively seeking a job. So the hard part about unemployment is not actually the formula or the calculation itself, it's seeing exactly who makes up what category in terms of the economy. So how do we define who's in the labor force and who's out of the labor force? Who do we define who's employed and unemployed? That's something we need to get deeper into in this lecture. So as a little bit of a closer history look at unemployment, you notice that over the course of history for the United States, our unemployment has been relatively boring. If you can see right here, the highest unemployment rate that we've ever had was during the Great Depression, where unemployment hit 25%. But ever since then, it really hasn't surpassed the 10% sort of a benchmark that we have right here. So here, during the 80s, that's where the oil crisis hit. During the last financial crisis, during Obama's administration, this is where our unemployment was pretty close to 10% or even surpassed that double-digit mark. If we extended this out, to include the coronavirus, we'd see that huge spike upwards to that 15 to 20% right here, but we're going to see exactly how quickly we get back to normal to that 3.5% that we saw before that pandemic. So like we said before, the calculation of the unemployment rate, the formula is very, very easy. It's just equal to the number of people unemployed divided by the labor force. However, there are a certain group of people and certain groups of categories of people that we need to focus in on right here. So every month, the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they also track this unemployment data. They report the size of the labor force, the number of people employed, and the number of people unemployed. And the hard part here is to figure out who belongs in each of these particular categories, because they are the ones that are going to be reported in terms of the unemployment rate. So first of all, let's focus on the people that are considered to be employed. A person is counted as employed if it fits any of these following categories right here. And you're going to notice that these are pretty loose definitions, so it wouldn't be surprising to see if the vast majority of you watching this video right here are considered to be employed. So number one, you work a full-time or part-time job. So either category, you are counted as employed according to the statistics. If you work at a temporary job, so if it's a seasonal job, you only have the job because it's Christmas time and employers need to hire more people, then you are still counted as employed for that season. If you have a job but you're on vacation, you're ill, on maternity leave, on strike, or for whatever reason can't come into work, you are still counted as employed. And then finally, the most unusual one that we have right here, you're an unpaid family worker working at least 15 hours per week. So even though you're not getting paid, you work for your mom, you work for your dad or other family member, you're not getting paid, but if you work at least 15 hours per week, you are still counted as employed according to the employment statistics. So here, you probably want to get paid, you want to say, hey, mom and dad, give me a paycheck, but they don't want to. But if you're still working for them at your mom and pop shops, your smaller stores, family businesses, you are still counted as employed in this scenario. How about in terms of unemployed? You are unemployed if you do not have a job, but you have been actively seeking work in the past 4 weeks. The key phrase that we want to focus in on is an active job search. So there's actually some type of paper trail that tells us that you have been looking for work. So an active job search says that, hey, you're looking for jobs online and you're actually applying for them. You've gone on interviews. You've done the sort of updating your resume and handing them out. So there's some type of paper trail that makes it some type of active job search. If it's a passive job search, however, you're just talking about jobs with your friends, you're just browsing jobs on the internet, say on monster.com, on indeed.com, or LinkedIn, but not actually doing anything with it, then it's considered a passive job search and you would not be counted as unemployed in that instance. It has to be an active job search and it has to be within the past month. And if we take the sum of those unemployed and employed, that is counted as the labor force in the United States. So the labor force is the total number of those employed and unemployed. So adding these two categories of people makes up the labor force in the US. However, if you're not employed. If you're not unemployed, then you're going to be considered not in the labor force in this instance. So if you don't fit the definition of employed, don't fit the definition of unemployed, then you're going to be considered to be in a category known as not in the labor force. So let's go ahead and see a few examples of this. So not in the labor force. So who do you think would exactly fall in not in the labor force? You're not employed, meaning that you don't have a job currently. You're not unemployed, that means you're not seeking a job. So who would fit in these particular categories? So first people that probably pop into your mind are retired persons. So retired persons. So your grandmother, your grandfather, abuelita, you're going to go ahead and say that these retired people, they've already done their work, they're not seeking a job, they're not actively seeking a job, so therefore they are seen as not in the labor force. Other people included in this category are persons under the age of 16, persons under the age of 16. So you are considered a minor in terms of these employment statistics, so you're not going to be counted among them at all. People not looking to work obviously would fall under not in the labor force, so persons not looking to work, not looking to work. So if you're a full-time student and you just want to focus in on that and don't look for a job, you would be counted as not in the labor force. We can also say that institutionalized people would fall under not in the labor force. So institutionalized persons. So if you're hospitalized for some reason, if you've gone crazy, you're in a mental hospital, or if you're in jail, actually, you are considered institutionalized and you would not be counted as in the labor force. So all of these categories of people are not in the labor force, so therefore they're never going to come in terms of the calculation of the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate, basically those unemployed divided by in the labor force, so employed plus unemployed, and you're good to go to find out that unemployment rate that we have, that the BLS is going to calculate. Do not include those not in the labor force because they are not employed or unemployed. They are different groups of people. We'll go ahead and take a closer look at a big example using the ideas of each of these categories of people. And like we said, it's a very easy calculation. You just want to be aware and cognizant about where the people are going to fall in these different categories.